So, have you ever stopped to think about where political ideas really come from these days? I mean, not just the news, but the other places. Your favorite lifestyle vlogs, maybe? Movie promos? Even online fan groups? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this really powerful, kind of hidden system that shapes opinions. It's called the Alternative Influence Network.
And that's a huge question, right? Because this kind of influence, it's not always out in the open. It's happening way outside of the traditional nightly news cycle. It works in these really subtle ways, woven into the content we're all consuming every single day. So how does it actually work? Well, the key is to understand this very specific kind of network. And that brings us to the main idea here, the Alternative Influence Network, or AIN for short. Now, when you look at it, it's basically this web of content creators who they might not seem connected at all on the surface, but they're all using the same playbook. They're leveraging all those tools of internet fame to push a particular worldview. And the whole time, they're framing themselves as the authentic alternative to what they call mainstream media.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First up, we'll dig into the shared ideology, what actually connects these creators. Then we'll get into their playbook, the specific techniques they use. After that, we'll connect the dots and see how this network really operates. And to wrap it up, we'll zoom out and look at the huge ecosystem this whole thing is a part of. All right, let's dive right into the foundation, the ideas themselves. I mean, to really get what this network is about, you got to understand what it's selling, so to speak. What are those common threads, that ideological glue that holds this whole thing together? Okay, to make this less abstract, let's look at a real-world example from India. This map, it shows the network in action. Just look at the three figures right there in the middle. You've got the lifestyle influencer Ranveer Alibadia. You probably know him as BeerBiceps. Then there's the filmmaker Vivek Agnihotri. And then the public image of an infamous gangster, Lawrence Bishnoi. What's so wild about this is how the map just lays it all out, connecting these totally separate worlds, self-help, movies, and crime, all into this single tangled web of influence.
And here's the thing, even though their styles are worlds apart, they're all pushing a surprisingly similar set of ideas. We're talking a big focus on nationalism and this kind of hyper-masculine strength that's usually coupled with a strong call for security and order, and a big part of it is framing progressive ideas like feminism, for example, not just as something they disagree with, but as something that's actively anti-national. So, okay, those are the core ideas. But the network's real secret sauce, it isn't just what they're saying, it's how they're saying it. So let's crack open their playbook.
This comparison really nails the difference. On one side, you've got legacy media, right? Their credibility comes from big institutions. But then you look at the AIN creators, their credibility is all about perceived honesty, about feeling personal and authentic. It's a total shift away from formal presentations and towards this intimate, personal storytelling. It creates this feeling that they're letting you in on secrets that the mainstream is trying to hide.
And this whole playbook really rests on three main pillars. First up, relatability. Like those podcasts filmed in a casual home studio. The second is authenticity. This is all about performing as a truth teller, someone who's fighting against the system. And number three, strategic controversy. This is a big one. It's about manufacturing conflict or claiming you're being censored, all to grab attention and fire up your base. And this quote here, it really gets to the heart of it. Because in the Indian context, a lot of the ideas aren't really alternative at all. You can hear them in the mainstream. The thing that makes this an alternative influence network is the method. It's that whole style, the personalized stories, the micro-celebrity vibe, that feeling of intimacy. That's what builds such a strong bond of trust with their audience. Okay, so we've got the ideology and we've got the playbook, but how do all these separate creators actually become a network? For the average person watching, how do these dots get connected?
Well, the way it works is by creating what are called pathways. Just think of it like a digital trail of breadcrumbs. A guest spot on a podcast here, a recommended for you video there. Each little step guides a viewer from one creator to the next. And what this does is create this subtle ideological drift. It can pull someone from pretty mainstream content towards more and more extreme views, and often you don't even realize it's happening.
Let's actually walk through what that might look like. Imagine someone starts off watching a self-help video from BeerBiceps, something about motivation. Totally harmless, right? Well, the algorithm then suggests a clip from one of his interviews with the filmmaker Vivek Agnihotri, and now the topic is nationalism. From there, maybe they start getting recommendations for these fan-made edits that glorify the hyper-masculine vigilante image of Lawrence Bishnoi. See how that works? Every single step feels like a natural choice, but it's actually leading them down a very specific ideological path.
All right, for our last section, let's zoom all the way out. Because these creators and these pathways, they don't exist in a bubble. They're a key part of a much, much bigger media and cultural ecosystem. And the reach they have is, honestly, it's massive. This isn't just a YouTube thing or an Instagram thing. Their content gets amplified everywhere. It gets picked up and repackaged by pro-government media outlets. It gets shared in diaspora communities online. It's even promoted by youth lifestyle brands. And of course, it spreads like wildfire through WhatsApp and other private social media. What you end up with is this incredibly powerful, self-reinforcing echo chamber. So what's the end game here? It's not just about influencing you on one single issue. No, the game is much bigger than that. The real goal is to normalize a particular worldview. By dressing up a political agenda in the language of authenticity, rebellion, and youth culture, it stops feeling like a political argument and starts feeling like just plain common sense. And that really leaves us with a big question to chew on. As the lines between entertainment, lifestyle, and politics just keep getting blurrier and blurrier, how does that change the way we see the world? How does it affect how we take in information? It's definitely something to think about the next time you're scrolling through your feed.